Today in this video, I will talk to you about the subtext of my novel, The Monk Without Dharma. This will be of interest to literature scholars, students, and of course to anyone who loves reading a book and discussing it. The spine or the central thread of the story is Tompo's pursuit of the path of Dharma, or as one American reader called it, finding a path outside the path of Dharma. At its core, the novel is structured as a two-layered narrative. On the surface, the protagonist, Tompo, is unable to learn Dharma. No matter how hard he tries, he doesn't understand even the basics of a foundational text. This is the plot that you follow as a story. But on a deeper level, unknown to even himself, Tompo has already become or is becoming a bodhisattva in essence through living his life in the right way. And he continues to make profound spiritual progress. This is the inner layer of the story, the subtext running underneath the plot. To grasp this layer, you have to decode the narrative. But there are subtextual hints given at a plot level throughout the story. The inner layer begins very early in the story. It happens with everything in nature responding to Tompo positively, easing his difficulties. He believes this is due to the blessings of the gods and the deities. Of course, it is the blessings of the gods and the deities, but only a tiny fraction in the beginning. What truly happens later on is the inner transformation because of the way he lives his life. This is what I call the science of Buddhism at work. I will do a separate video on Tompo's transformation and the intrinsic nature of reality, which is universal like modern science, not just specific to Buddhism. But for now, for this video, let us stick to the subtext. The next subtextual element is in the heart of a very important plot point, which is called the inciting incident in the narrative structure. The inciting incident is the event that sets the story rolling. In The Monk Without Dharma, Tompo, a young bond servant, arrives at a congregation where Ruangtuku is giving a discourse to the people of the village. On hearing the words of Dharma and seeing the Tuku, a wave of devotion surges through him and his body shudders as if an explosion has been set off inside him. Then something limitless, exhilarating, and unexplainable comes over him. In that moment, a rain of flowers fall. A halo appears around the sun. A large rainbow arches across the village, and a translucent image of a Dakini appears in the sky. Everyone goes into a spiritual frenzy and prostrates to Ruangtuku, thinking that these rare auspicious signs are appearing because of his greatness. But in reality, it is the great strength of Tompo's devotion that is felt in the Buddha realm that causes this sacred signs to manifest. At the plot level, this incident sets the story rolling. Both Tompo and Kathok embark on the path of Dharma. At the subtextual level, it reveals Tompo's potential for great spiritual realization. The third major subtextual hint is Lama Zangchak recounting his dream of an old Buddha statue being brought to his monastery, carried on the back of a bodhisattva. Because Kathok is the one who offers a similar gold statue of Buddha as a gift offering to him, they think the dream is an omen of good tendel for Kathok's induction as Lama Zangchak's disciple. But what they don't realize is that it was Tompo who carried the statue along with everything else in that large basket. The dream's actual significance is that Tompo is already a bodhisattva in essence. Its narrative purpose is to deepen the subtext while advancing the plot of Kathok beginning his journey of becoming a Dharma prodigy with a very good tender. Then comes a very pivotal moment where Tompo stands on the edge of a cliff, ready to jump to his death. This marks the midpoint in the narrative structure, where the hero nearly dies but ultimately survives and achieves the goal he seeks. Here in this story, the goal that Tompo is after is Dharma. So, when the wily old monk he meets there tells him that he is an orphan without home and a monk without Dharma, a rare situation in his life that he should not trade it for all the Dharma teachings in the world, Tompo gets the key to the hidden door, the secret path of Tantra, which is far more valuable than the traditional teaching of Dharma. Of course, he doesn't yet understand it. He dismisses the old monk as a weird old man. But at the subtextual level, he gets a rare treasure. Following this, he meets Jadalma, supposedly a woman without virtue, in a very surreal setting. His interaction with her is as mystical and surreal as his meeting with the old monk in the forest, in what can only be construed as straying further from his path. He sleeps with her and then marries her. This seems like an end of the path for him. But at the subtextual level, he is advancing further. Jadalma bears the rare birth sign of a Dakini, with the potential to become his spiritual Miss Dakini, and aid him on his journey. Next, he is sent to Lama Jamsempa. Unaware of his inner transformation, Tompo desperately hopes that this time he will finally understand Dharma. But he doesn't understand anything again. Instead, the Lama falls ill and Tompo spends years nursing him until his death. On the surface, he remains a monk who has learned no Dharma. But in terms of the narrative function, he fulfills the highest duty of a monk, that is, serving his Lama unconditionally. He also exhausts much of his bad karma. This aspect of karma is very important because the entire narrative is built on the overarching theme of karma. I will do a separate video on the theme of karma later. After the cremation of Lama Jamsempa, Anipema gives Tompo a magnificent gold statue of Chenrezig, which had been given to Lama Jamsempa by Tamar Rinpoche. This is very important because Tamar Rinpoche is the root teacher of Lama Tongtsar, who is in turn the root teacher of Lama Jamsempa and Lama Zangcha. So, for Tompo to receive this statue, it is like, in essence, he is receiving the lineage. This is affirmed by Anipema, who tells him that Lama Jamsempa had, in hindsight, wished for Tompo to have received all his teachings and become his heart son. So, in essence, Tompo inherits the lineage itself, although it is Kathok to whom the monastery is given. But of course, Tompo does not need this lineage. He is being prepared for something far greater. Tompo goes through all of these experiences because he needs to fulfill everything that is required to transcend the traditional study of Dharma and reach the secret realm of Tantra. He spends about 9 or 10 years in these two monasteries, which is equivalent to the duration required to complete Dharma studies through conventional means in a monastery. So, from a narrative perspective, he is being prepared for a giant leap into Tantra, bypassing the traditional path of Dharma. How this leap would happen is explained by the old monk when they meet again in the forest at the beginning of Tompo's pilgrimage. This time, the old monk tells him that Dharma is only a path, not the destination, and that in rare cases, one can reach the destination without taking the path of Dharma through living one's life in the right way. For Tompo, this rare case lies in his unique circumstance of being an orphan without home and a monk without Dharma. The old monk then urges him to reflect on who he is outside by level and what he is inside in essence, and to see if these two correspond. For who one is outside by level is exactly one is inside in essence is the most fundamental thing in Dharma. This time, unlike in their first meeting, Tompo gets the gist of what the old monk says, and he follows through it. At this point in the narrative, the subtext merges with the plot, becoming one thread. From here on, his spiritual transformation unfolds visibly. Everything that happens to him, from his enhanced sensitivity to being in the moment, connected to all things around him, happens at a plot level. These experiences are later explained by Thokme Gyatso Rinpoche, one of the greatest living masters of Dzogchen, who guides Tompo in making the leap from no Dharma to beyond Dharma into the advanced level of Dzogchen, thus tying the surface plot and the inner subtext into one stream. This universal law of nature is further elaborated by Khenpo Rinpoche at the end of the novel. With this, I have covered all the major subtextual elements from the beginning till the end and outline the inner layer of the story in a gist. If you reread the book, you will get the subtext more clearly. In fact, you will find even more allusions, hidden meanings, undertones, and nuances seeping onto the surface. This novel was crafted to be read, reread, and analyzed from multiple angles and at different levels. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you.